What's up, guys? CJ here, and welcome back to Hybrid TV Episode 5. We've made it to the 5th episode, guys. We've survived our first month on the air. Well, technically we haven't, because we weren't really there until episode, was it 3? 4? Have we done one of those?
I survived all but one of the episodes where I wasn't there.
Tim was there for the creation of the podcast. He actually has seen it all. He's like, he's just this font of wisdom for the podcast. He's like our babushka.
He's not new this time.
He's not. This is just newcomer Tim. Welcome, Tim. How did he? I remember when that was a bit. That was a good bit. It was much better than my shitty "what episode is this" bit. We'll quickly talk about Star Trek Discovery.
You got really lost.
Episode
on
3 we did,
shit.
which I guess we've never really talked about it before. We just had a lot of things to get out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that and didn't just walk into a bunch of spoilers. But moving on to Star Trek Discovery talk. We had the 3rd episode debut this past Sunday, called Context is for Kings. And of course, after the first 2 episodes kind of introduced us to that world, set up the Klingon as like the main foe, very dominated by the Klingon those first 2 episodes were. We lose a couple of characters we thought were going to be series regulars in that 2nd episode. In this 3rd episode, we go completely away from that, and suddenly the war with the Klingon is just a talking point, and it's still a driving factor, even though it's not as present anymore. But this episode most notably gets us to our new status quo. Tim, did you watch it this Sunday yet?
Yeah, I watched the new episode.
What did you think? What did you think about the way they handled getting us to the Discovery? Finally, it took 3 episodes, but we're here. She's a member of the crew.
I mean, I honestly liked episode 3 more than I liked episodes 1 or 2. Well, for one, it felt like its own completed story that didn't require any thing additional to get context for it or finish it off.
I saw one comment that kind of stuck with me just because it kind of summed up how I felt about it from our review. Was this finally feels like they're moving towards the Star Trek that people know and love. It finally felt like we were headed a little bit more in that direction, rather than this is, the first 2 episodes, I would say, felt very cinematic, felt very much like, Star Trek on the big screen. Yeah. This episode felt a little more like an old school, maybe not an old school episode, but it felt a little bit more like a small screen. This fits. This felt like Star Trek on TV.
It felt more like it's a self-contained story that still had elements moving forward.
Yeah, it's and that was honestly I felt like the weakest part of the episode was Burnham getting to the Discovery, how we got from point A to point B, where she goes from being in prison for life for mutiny to being a crew member on the Discovery. I felt like that whole transition and kind of the like I mentioned earlier, the exposition required to get us to that point was kind of a little bit. I feel like that was kind of the weakest part of the episode. I feel like the best part of the episode was the mystery of what they were working on and the demise of the USS Glenn, and then the kind of alien-esque mission onto this disabled spaceship that now has this giant weird monster on it, but 2 the weird Listellium spore stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funky.
Going off those. Well, for one, I say the weakest part of the episode was that Doug Jones's character just happened to be on the ship that found her.
Yeah, I think that needs to be explained. For sure.
They're not even surprised to see each other. It's like they expected to see each other on that ship that day.
Well, it's weird too, because it seems like there was another time where I think she recognizes a crew member, another person that I think was on the bridge, if I remember correctly. She kind of, of course, these people want nothing to do with her because she's a mutineer, and in their eyes, she helped start the war, and Giorgio's dead because of her, and which is not necessarily the case, but it's weird that Discovery has so many former members of the Shinjo on it. And I'm sure we'll be seeing some more of them. But very, very strange.
All the people who weren't just nameless red shirts.
Basically. Although none of them...
They're named red shirts now.
80% of that crew definitely just got ganked. But, the rest of them are now serving on Discovery. And I was kind of hoping that was going to be brought up. It's, some connection between Lorca and Giorgio that was never actually explored. But I guess we'll have to wait until...
to hear that magical Southern accent from Jason Isaacs.
He put in work. I mean, I knew he... What was the show? I think it was called, like, Awake or something like that. He did a show on I think it was CBS years ago, and it was actually a really, really good show that got canceled after one season. But it was... So I knew he could do an American accent, but it kind of was, again, like, you know? Kind of a surprising... Because he does not have a thin British accent. It is a thick accent.
Yeah.
So always kind of surprising.
Lorca is my favorite character at this point.
I would agree. I think he was definitely, you know, a breath of fresh air almost for the show. It's kind of I'm loving how he interacts with Burnham, and I'm kind of hoping that's, you know, I feel like this was the best performance that we've gotten so far this season out of Sonequa Martin Green as well, easily. Kind of weird, you know. I was talking in my review. I was like, "Is this?" I don't know if it's just because she was, you know, just laid low. She's at her lowest point. She's playing the desperation, you know, part of this really well. This resigned kind of guilt and shame. She was just playing it really well. But Lorca really, you know, was the highlight. I think I'm a big Jason Isaacs guy. I'm a stan. But what are your thoughts on Lorca versus Giorgio so far? Do you think that's something?
Lorca way better.
I mean, I personally didn't hate Michelle Yeoh.
I didn't hate her, but she was like super nothing, and she was just really indignant about her position.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain degree. Will, do you have any thoughts on the Lorca-Giorgio debate?
Whoever's the cooler one is the one that I cast my vote for.
Lorca
it is.
Lorca, then. All right, that's 3 votes for Lorca. But Tim, I mean, just before we move on to the Gifted, what are your thoughts on this spore stuff? This Listellium spores.
I'm still not fully sure exactly what it's supposed to do. Like, is it actually teleporting her to these places? Is it giving her, like, visions of it? And where do they go with this? Because I don't think anything from the later series has anything to do with this.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research, and it's I don't want to say it's clearly not going to go well, but it's like I could not find any record of it. And, you know, just to double, you know, fact check myself, just a quick, there's nothing there. There's really, I mean, I might have misspelled it, but Google actually did not return any results for that. So there's no connection, I would say. And clearly, I mean, if you're looking at, this is prime timeline, so by the time of the original series, we don't have people flying on mushroom power. You know, the Next Generation clearly isn't either, so it's not something that 200 years in the future.
They also apparently lose hologram technology sometime between now and the original series.
Which, I mean, it happens to the best of us, you know. I really...
The only thing I can think of is, like, in a short period of time, the Federation got completely destroyed and then rebuilt.
Which is going to be really interesting. I mean, it could happen where we've got the war going on, and they've said it will be...
It's all still, like, canon to the original series, isn't it?
Yes, this is... A lot of people were thinking it was going to be set in the new reboot timeline, and no, it's completely not. It's in the prime timeline. So...
oh boy.
Yeah, somehow, but they've said that they're somehow going to explain the inconsistencies, and I'm not sure if I believe them or not.
Why Spock never talked about his surrogate black older sister?
I
mean, hey, it's maybe Spock's.
She died 10 years ago.
All the time as a kid.
She died 10 years ago. It's a very sensitive subject.
Yeah. She was...
I'm just imagining baby Spock being raised Alice in Wonderland.
But alright, I guess that brings us to the end of this episode of Hybrid TV, number 5. Please ask some questions. If you want them answered on air, we definitely will. As you saw this week, we'll probably talk about them at length. Just hit us up in the comment section, or on Twitter, or on SoundCloud using the hashtag AskHybridTV. And like I said, I mean, we'll usually answer... I mean, even if there are 4 or 5, I think we usually try to get through them. But yeah, please do that so we can have more to talk about next week. We hope you enjoyed this little rundown of Rick and Morty, Star Trek Discovery, The Gifted, very briefly. And of course, whether or not they should just cancel everything. Netflix, except for Daredevil. Burn it down.
Where it stood.
But that is going to do it for us here. Tim, Will, where can they find you on the social medias?
They can find me on Twitter at Austie Dragoon.
Young Will.
They can find me on YouTube as Will the Greatest.
Will the Greatest. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here. Signing off for Will and Tim, this is CJ, and we'll see you next week.